Our marriage was on the verge of divorce, but suddenly my wife surprised me by changing the locks. When I called her, she said, "Try apartment 3B. That's where your future lives." I knocked. A woman opened the door and said, "She told me you'd come crying." I knew something was wrong before I even stepped out of the car. It was the little things. The porch light was off. Claire always left it on when she knew I was coming home late, and I had been coming home late a lot lately. That small detail alone shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. It was the kind of thing I had come to depend on, even if I hadn't realized it. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, staring at the darkened house. My house. Our house. The place Claire and I had built together. The place we used to fill with laughter and warmth. Now it was just a shell, filled with the ghosts of old arguments and unspoken words. I exhaled, rubbing the bridge of my nose before grabbing my briefcase. Maybe she was asleep. Maybe she was mad at me. Both were likely. Claire and I had been walking a fine line for months, teetering between trying to fix things and letting them fall apart completely. But it wasn't until I slid my key into the lock that I knew for sure. It didn't fit. I frowned, tried again, twisting the key harder, as if forcing it would change the reality in front of me. Nothing. I stepped back, staring at the door as my heartbeat picked up. The locks had been changed. Claire had changed the locks. For a long time, I just stood there, gripping my key as if it would suddenly start working again. My mind was slow to catch up with what was happening. This was Claire, my wife. This was our home. This wasn't real. I pulled out my phone and called her. My hands felt clammy as I gripped the phone, waiting. She picked up after the first ring. Her voice was calm. "Steady. Try apartment 3B, she said. "That's where your future lives." Then she hung up. I stood frozen on the front steps, my phone still pressed to my ear long after the call had ended. Apartment 3B? I had no idea what the hell she was talking about. I called her again, straight to voicemail. Again, and again, nothing. A cold feeling settled in my chest. Claire was not impulsive. She wasn't the type to pull some kind of stunt without a reason. If she had changed the locks and sent me to some apartment across town, there was something bigger going on here. I didn't know what it was, but I was about to find out. I drove in silence. The directions led me to an apartment complex on the other side of town, a place I had never been to before. It was the kind of building that had seen better days, faded brick, peeling paint, dim lights flickering in the stairwells. A place where people lived when they were in between things. I parked, gripping the wheel for a moment before stepping out. Apartment 3B. My footsteps echoed as I climbed the stairs. My heart pounded harder with every step. I stopped in front of the door, knocked. A few seconds passed before I heard movement inside. Then the door opened, and I found myself staring at a woman I had never seen before. She was in her mid-30s, with auburn hair tied back, tired eyes, and an expression that was somewhere between amusement and pity. She leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. "She told me you'd come crying," the woman said. My mouth went dry. I tried to speak, but nothing came out at first. I cleared my throat. "What?" "She said you'd show up, looking for answers." The woman's gaze flicked over me, assessing. "You should come in." I hesitated. Every instinct in my body told me to turn around and walk away, to pretend this wasn't happening. But Claire had led me here. She had meant for me to be here. So I stepped inside. The apartment was small, clean, but sparse. A couch, a bookshelf, a small kitchen table with 2 chairs. The air smelled faintly of coffee and something floral, maybe lavender. It felt lived in, but lonely. The woman gestured toward the couch. "Sit." I remained standing. "Who are you?" My voice was hoarse. She exhaled. "Raquel." I blinked. The name meant nothing to me. She gave me a look, tilting her head. "That doesn't ring a bell, does it?" "No," she let out a small, humorless laugh. "Of course it doesn't." Something in her tone sent a ripple of unease through me. "What is this?" I asked. "What's going on?" Raquel was quiet for a moment. Then she walked to a bookshelf, picked up a framed photograph, and handed it to me. I stared at it. It was an old picture of Claire. She looked younger, maybe early 20s. She was smiling. Beside her was a man I didn't recognize. His arm was around her shoulder. The two of them looked close. Too close. "Who's this?" I asked, my throat dry. Raquel's voice was tight. "His name was Joel." He's dead now." I looked up sharply. She was watching me closely, as if gauging my reaction. My pulse thudded. "And Claire?" Raquel's jaw tightened. "She was in love with him." I swallowed. "I don't understand." Raquel took the photo from my hands, staring down at it. "He was my husband," she said finally. A strange ringing filled my ears. My vision tunneled slightly. "What?" I croaked. "She had an affair with him." Raquel's voice was quiet, but each word cut deep. "For 3 years. Before he died." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "No," I shook my head. "Claire wouldn't." She did. My hands trembled. I wanted to deny it, to say Raquel was lying. But something in me knew. I thought about the way Claire had always dodged certain questions about her past. How she never talked about old relationships. How there were gaps in her history, things I had never pressed her on. I had trusted her, and she had spent years lying to me. Raquel's voice was softer now. I think she sent you here so you'd finally understand. I stood there numb. Claire had ended our marriage with one decisive move. She had changed the locks, forced me out, and sent me to the one person who could shatter any illusions I had left about who she really was. I don't remember leaving Raquel's apartment. One moment, I was standing there, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on my chest like a boulder. The next, I was outside, cold air biting at my skin, the city's dull hum filling the silence in my head. I must have walked down the stairs, must have opened the door, stepped out onto the cracked pavement of the parking lot. But I had no memory of doing it. My legs carried me to my car on autopilot. My fingers fumbled for my keys. I slid into the driver's seat, shutting the door behind me, but I didn't start the engine. Instead, I sat there. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. 3 years. Claire had been with someone else for 3 years. Not some meaningless fling. Not some drunken mistake. 3 years of lying. 3 years of coming home to me, kissing me, telling me she loved me while she was in love with someone else. And not just anyone. Her own sister's husband. I felt sick. I forced in a breath, but it came out uneven. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was something else. Something deeper. Something that made me question every single thing I had ever known about my wife. Was there a version of our marriage that was ever real? Had she ever truly loved me? Or had I just been some safe choice after everything with Joel fell apart? A backup plan. And why now? Why had she chosen this moment to push me out and make me see the truth? I had no answers. Just the hollow, aching realization that my marriage was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. I should have left. Should have driven away. Put as much distance between myself and that apartment complex as possible. But instead, I found myself reaching for my phone. I didn't even think about it. My fingers moved on their own, scrolling through my contacts, finding the number I had dialed 1,000 times before. Claire. I hesitated for half a second. Then I hit call. 1 ring. 2. Then she answered. There was no surprise in her voice. You went. A statement, not a question. My pulse pounded in my ears. Why? Silence. I closed my eyes. Why, Claire? Still nothing. Then, finally, I was tired. I let out a bitter laugh. Tired of what? Lying to me. Tired of pretending. Her voice was so calm. So infuriatingly even. It made me want to scream. 3 years, I said, gripping the phone. 3 goddamn years. And you just what? Married me because he died. Because you needed someone to fill the space he left? Claire let out a breath. It wasn't a sigh of regret. It wasn't an apology. It was relief. Like she had been waiting for me to put it together. Like she had known this moment was coming and had already made peace with it. And that, more than anything, made me want to tear something apart. I had been walking around in a dream while she had already woken up. She had already moved on. I was just now catching up. My voice came out hoarse. You should have told me. I tried, she said quietly. 100 times, I tried. Bullshit. I did. A pause. Then, softer. But you never wanted to see it. That stopped me cold. I opened my mouth. Closed it again. I thought about the past few years. The things I ignored. The small changes. The distance. Had I seen it? Somewhere deep down? Had I known, on some level, that she was never truly mine? Had I just refused to admit it? I didn't know. And maybe that was the worst part of all. Claire's voice pulled me back. You deserve the truth, she said. And now you have it. Another long silence. Then, the click of the line going dead. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, as the weight of everything she said settled in my bones. She had ended it. Not just our marriage, but the lie. And for the first time since this all started, I realized I had no idea what to do next. The city felt different as I drove. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. The streets blurred together, familiar roads stretching out like foreign places. Buildings I'd passed 1,000 times felt strange, distorted under the dim glow of the streetlights. I rolled the window down, letting the cold night air hit my face, trying to clear the suffocating fog settling in my mind. I should have felt something stronger, rage, heartbreak, anything. But all I had was this hollow, empty feeling, like I was walking through a life that had never really belonged to me. Claire had rewritten my past in a single night. Our memories, our years together, the love I thought we had. It was all built on something rotten, something she had been carrying long before I ever stepped into her life. And I'd never seen it. Or maybe I had. Maybe I'd ignored the signs, dismissed the way her eyes would glaze over sometimes when I spoke, like she was somewhere else entirely. The way she'd smile at me, but never quite reach for my hand first. The way she never talked about the years before me, the gaps in her past that I never pushed her to fill. I had accepted the love she was capable of giving and never questioned if there was something missing. Until now. A horn blared behind me, snapping me back into focus. I glanced at the traffic light, green. I hadn't moved. The driver behind me gestured angrily, mouthing something I couldn't hear, but I barely registered it. I pressed the gas, forcing my body to go through the motions, even as my mind unraveled. I drove aimlessly for an hour before finally pulling into the parking lot of an old diner. It was the kind of place that looked the same no matter how many decades passed. Yellowing fluorescent lights, faded booths, a few scattered customers nursing late-night coffees. I walked in, the bell above the door jangling, and slid into a booth by the window. The waitress, a tired-looking woman with graying hair, barely glanced at me as she poured coffee into a chipped mug and set it in front of me. I wrapped my hands around it, staring down at the swirling black liquid, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle deep into my bones. Across from me, in the reflection of the window, I saw a man I barely recognized. There were lines on my face I didn't remember being there this morning. My hair was disheveled, my tie loose. My eyes looked haunted. I had walked into this day thinking I had a home, a marriage, a life. Now, I had none of those things. Long night. The waitress's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. I looked up at her. She wasn't really interested in my answer. It was just something to say. Still, I nodded. Yeah. She refilled my coffee and walked away. I took a slow sip, staring out the window. For the first time, the thought hit me. Where do I go now? I couldn't go home. That wasn't my home anymore. I couldn't go to Claire. There was nothing left to say. I had friends, sure. But the idea of showing up at someone's doorstep, trying to explain this, trying to make sense of something that didn't make sense at all, it felt impossible. I was alone, and I had no idea what to do with that. The coffee had gone cold by the time I finally pulled out my phone. I didn't call Claire. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I opened the browser and typed something I never thought I'd have to. Divorce lawyers near me. The search results blurred together. Names, numbers, websites promising aggressive representation and uncontested options. It didn't feel real, but it was. And for the first time since Claire had hung up that phone, something inside me clicked into place. I had spent years believing in a marriage that never really existed. I wouldn't spend another second pretending. I closed my eyes, exhaled, and hit call. The phone rang twice before a voice answered. Calm, professional, too put together for the mess I was bringing to the table. Law Office of Simmons and Rhodes. How can I assist you? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I was sitting in a diner at 2 in the morning, my coffee untouched, my world in pieces, and I was about to tell a complete stranger that my wife had locked me out of my own home and sent me to meet the widow of the man she had been in love with before I even existed in her life. How the hell was I supposed to put that into words? Hello, the receptionist prompted. I swallowed. Yeah, I need a divorce lawyer. The words felt foreign coming out of my mouth, like they belonged to someone else. There was a pause, followed by the quiet clacking of a keyboard. I understand. Have you been served papers yet? Or are you looking to initiate the process? Had I been served? Not officially, but Claire changing the locks and shoving the truth in my face felt like a more decisive action than any paperwork could be. I guess I need to start it, I said finally. All right. Another pause, more typing. We can set up a consultation with Mr. Rhodes later this week. Would that work for you? Later this week. Like this was just another thing on the to-do list. Grocery shopping. Oil change. Divorce. I rubbed a hand down my face. Yeah, that works. She confirmed the appointment, gave me the details, and I hung up, staring at my phone like it had betrayed me. It was done. The first step, at least. There was no taking it back now. I should have felt something. Relief, maybe. Closure. But there was just this aching numbness spreading through me, like my body was conserving whatever energy it had left just to keep me upright. The door to the diner jingled, and I glanced up instinctively. A couple walked in, late 20s, maybe early 30s. The woman leaned into the man, whispering something that made him chuckle under his breath. Their hands were intertwined, their movements easy, comfortable. I looked away. Claire and I used to be like that. Or at least, I thought we were. Now, I didn't know what was real anymore. The waitress came by again, eyeing my still full coffee cup. You want anything else, hon? I hesitated, then shook my head. No, I'm good. She nodded and walked away, and I let my gaze drift back out the window. I could go to a hotel for the night. Or sleep in my car, maybe. It wasn't like I had anywhere else to be. But as I sat there, staring at my own reflection in the glass, a new thought settled in the back of my mind. Raquel. She had been just as blindsided as me. She had lost Joel, lost the person Claire had been in love with. And then, after all that, she had to live knowing that Claire had just moved on, built a life, pretended nothing ever happened. And yet, she had opened the door when I knocked. She had looked at me like she knew exactly what I was feeling because she had felt it herself. She had answers. Answers I wasn't sure I wanted. But I needed them. Before I could talk myself out of it, I picked up my phone again and scrolled through my recent calls. Raquel's number was right there. I took a breath. Then I hit dial. Raquel answered on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call. There was no anger in her voice, no pity either. Just a quiet understanding, like she had been waiting for this moment as much as I had. I don't know why I'm calling, I admitted. Yes, you do, she said simply. I swallowed. Can we talk? A beat of silence. Then, I'll be up. I didn't let myself hesitate. I dropped some cash on the diner table, grabbed my keys, and headed back to her apartment. Raquel had changed into sweats and an oversized hoodie by the time I got there, her hair pulled into a messy bun. If she was surprised to see me again, she didn't show it. She just stepped aside and let me in. The apartment smelled like coffee and something floral. There were candles burning on the small table by the couch, casting a soft, golden glow. It was warm, welcoming, a stark contrast to how I felt. She motioned for me to sit. I did. Then, without a word, she poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one before settling across from me. So, she said, "What do you want to know?" "Everything." But I started with the question that had been eating away at me the most. "How long have you known?" Raquel took a slow sip of her wine, her gaze never leaving mine. I had my suspicions for years, but I didn't get confirmation until after Joel died. My fingers tightened around the glass. "Claire told you." She shook her head. "No, Joel did." I blinked. "What?" Raquel let out a humorless laugh. "He left me a letter. A confession, I guess. About their affair. About how he loved her and never stopped, even after marrying me." Her expression was unreadable. I think he thought he was giving me closure. That maybe, after he was gone, I'd feel less guilty about not mourning him properly. I stared at her. Did it work? She tilted her head, considering. No, silence stretched between us. Finally, I spoke. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Raquel sighed, setting her glass down. "What good would it have done? You were happy, or at least, you thought you were. And I wasn't exactly in a position to blow up someone else's life when mine was already in pieces." She leaned back against the couch. "But Claire?" "She knew I knew. And she knew it was only a matter of time before you did, too." I let that sink in. Claire had orchestrated this. Not just the affair, but my discovery of it. She had wanted me to find out. Wanted me to be the one to walk away first. Because that way, she wouldn't have to be the bad guy. It made me sick. Raquel watched me, her expression unreadable. "So what now?" Now, I burned everything down. But not in the way Claire expected. I took a slow sip of wine, letting the plan form in my mind. Then I looked at Raquel and said the last thing she expected to hear. "Do you want to help me ruin her?" Claire was confident she had won. She was waiting for me to react, waiting for me to storm back, to throw accusations, to break down. That was what she wanted. She wanted me to be angry, to be devastated. She wanted to play the victim. I gave her none of that. Instead, over the next few weeks, I was calm. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I filed for divorce before she could. I froze our joint accounts, moved my direct deposits, and secured the best lawyer in town. Claire was left scrambling, blindsided by how quickly I had taken control of the situation. Then came the real fun. With Raquel's help, I carefully leaked the truth to the people Claire truly cared about, the ones who mattered to her. Her friends, her colleagues, the social circle she had spent years cultivating. I never had to say a word publicly, never had to act out or cause a scene. I simply made sure that the right people knew the real Claire. And one by one, they turned their backs on her. Claire thrived on appearances, on keeping up the image of the perfect, put-together woman. When that image shattered, so did her power. She was left with nothing but the truth, the very truth she had spent years hiding. And Raquel? Well, she and I became friends. We laughed over coffee, shared stories, and slowly started picking up the pieces of the lives Claire and Joel had left in ruins. There was no grand romance between us, just an understanding. A bond formed from betrayal and survival. One day, maybe, love would come again. But for now, knowing that Claire was watching her perfect life crumble from the sidelines was satisfying enough. And that, to me, was revenge.